The red light flared with a sharp, angry buzz, loud enough to turn heads. At Fort Resolute's primary checkpoint, the scanner pulsed red again, rejecting the ID badge held by a woman in a faded cardigan and scuffed sneakers. She didn't flinch. The guard behind the glass did a double take, already halfway through his canned lecture about restricted areas. "Ma'am," he said with a smirk, "this entrance is for personnel only." She looked like someone who'd gotten lost on the way to a parent-teacher meeting, not someone standing in the heart of one of America's most classified military installations. Faded jeans, a nondescript ponytail, zero makeup. Harmless. Forgettable. Then everything changed. Without warning, the red scanner light shimmered into gold. Every screen across Fort Resolute lit up with a message most of the base had only heard whispered about in training. Priority Omega. 7 clearance detected. The guard's breath caught in his throat. Sirens didn't blare. The alert was deeper than noise. It moved beneath the skin, vibrating something primal. Cameras froze. Phones locked. Conversations died mid-word. And standing in the middle of it all, Elena Brooks didn't move. Her eyes didn't blink. Her hands stayed at her sides, steady, unmoved. Across the base, officers stiffened at terminals. Behind locked doors, generals looked up from briefings. This wasn't a drill. It was a reckoning. And the woman they'd ignored? She was the reason Fort Resolute had just stopped breathing. The gold light faded, but the silence clung to the walls like smoke. For a full 10 seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Then, quietly, the scanners reset and the checkpoint resumed its mechanical hum. As if the moment had not shattered something underneath the base's polished surface, Elena Brooks took one step forward at a pair of junior officers. By the elevator stole glances at her, nudging each other like schoolboys sharing a cruel joke. One of them whispered, "Bet she's just some overcleared secretary. Probably here to audit paper clips." Elena heard it all. She always did. The corridor was clinical, polished concrete floors, stainless steel doors. Cameras tracked every step. The place reeked of protocol and testosterone. Soldiers in pressed uniforms walked by, not even trying to hide their side eyes and smirks. That was when he appeared. Colonel Granger. He came around the corner like he owned the building, and in many ways, he did. 45 years old, broad shoulders struggling against a uniform half a size too tight. His medals gleamed like hunting trophies. The type of man who filled every room with his presence and emptied it of accountability. He was telling a story. As he walked, surrounded by his usual audience of sycophants, younger officers laughing too hard, nodding too fast. 3 of them cried, he said, grinning. Actual tears. After one hill climb. This generation. His voice cut off when he saw Elena. His eyes narrowed, taking in her plain cardigan, her tired sneakers, the small scar on her temple. Pray. She saw the exact second he made the decision that he veered toward her, forcing her to stop. "You look a little lost, sweetheart," he said. His smile stretched thin with superiority. "Cafeteria is that way." He gestured with his thumb, his body casually blocking the hallway. Elena looked up at him slowly. Her voice was soft. "I need to get through." It was perfectly pitched, hesitant, almost apologetic, designed to make him lean closer, to make him feel taller, stronger. Granger chuckled. His team formed a loose semicircle, sensing blood. Someone pulled out a phone, already recording. "This is a restricted zone," Granger said. "You need real clearance, not whatever badge you sweet-talked out of the front desk." More laughter, the kind that sounded worse in echoing corridors. The kind built not on humor, but on hierarchy. Pack mentality, cruel and contagious. Elena stood still. Inside, she was counting backward from 10 in Farsi, then again in Pashto. Control was muscle memory now. She watched his posture, clocked the lazy dominance in his stance, the artificial swagger. He thought he was asserting order. He was really just circling a woman he could not understand. "Let me see your credentials," he demanded. The tone had shifted. Less amused, more annoyed. She was not playing along fast enough. Elena reached into her pocket, slowly, deliberately. She let her fingers hesitate, just long enough for him to think she was stalling. The card she handed over was matte white. No seal, no insignia. It looked like something from a government gift shop. Granger held it up, sneering. "This," he scoffed. "You were using this to get through a secured wing." He turned to the phone recording. This would not get you into a middle school field trip, much less Fort Resolute. Laughter again, sharper now. Meaner. Elena said nothing, but behind her silence was thunder waiting to land, and behind her eyes, war. Colonel Granger flipped the white ID card in his hand like it was a joke gift from a prank shop. "You know," he said, his voice booming down the corridor, "I've seen better fakes in a cereal box." The circle of junior officers chuckled on cue. One of them even whistled. Another elbowed his buddy and muttered something about HR interns going rogue. Elena Brooks didn't move. Her expression remained soft, mildly embarrassed, like she was trying not to cause trouble. That was the part people always misunderstood. The stillness wasn't submission. It was precision. Granger leaned in again, waving the card in her face. "Lady, this badge wouldn't get you into a vending machine." He held it up for the camera. "Let's see what happens when we scan it. Want to show her what real authority looks like, boys." They laughed again. The phone kept recording. Elena noted it all. Time code, position of the guards, distance. To the scanner, angle of Granger's stance. Her mind filed it the same way it had once memorized safe house blueprints under a rain of mortar fire. Granger gripped her forearm and tugged her forward. Not hard, not brutal, but enough. Enough. To be on record. Enough to be a mistake. "Come on," he said. "Let's take a walk. Maybe when you see my clearance light up green, you'll get the message." He held up his own ID badge, the red level 4 stripe, practically screaming classified access. The laminated plastic was thick with pride. They reached. The security scanner. Granger slammed his badge down first. The panel blinked green. The reader chirped that he grinned. "See that? That's what a real badge looks like." Then, with an exaggerated flourish, he held up hers, the plain white card, and tapped it to the scanner. Point 1 beat past point 2. Then came the red flash. "Just like I thought," he said, waving it again for the camera. "Nothing. Civilian. Access. If that." But then, the red bled into gold. A second passed. Then every screen in the hallway, on walls, on desks, on wristbound tablets, lit up simultaneously. Bold, brutal letters flashed across every surface. Omega, 7 clearance. Detected. The laughter stopped so fast it left a vacuum behind. Phones locked. Security doors clicked shut. The light above the scanner pulsed with gold. Granger's fingers were still holding the card. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Someone in the crowd gasped, and Elena Brooks, standing calm and unflinching in the dead center of Fort Resolute's most secure wing, finally looked up. Her voice was quiet. "Not cold, colder than that. I believe that concludes your demonstration." Granger stared at the card like it had transformed into a live grenade. His hand dropped as if it had burned him. What is this? What does Omega 7 mean?" he asked, backing half a step away, but no one answered, because everyone else already knew. The Omega 7 designation wasn't just rare. It was legend. 12 names, never spoken aloud. Operatives with presidential-level authority, deployed without oversight. They didn't ask permission. They issued consequences, and Granger had just mocked one in front of a crowd. On camera, Elena turned to the recording officer. The phone shut off in the man's hand, its screen going black. Remote lockdown. Encrypted wipe. Too late. The moment had already landed. The mood in the corridor shifted. Respect didn't bloom. It slammed into the room like an impact blast. In Omore laughed. In Omore smirks. Just the ticking weight of realization. Granger swallowed. Hard. Colonel Mason Granger stood frozen, the white ID card still pinched between his fingers, as if dropping it would make the moment disappear. But it wouldn't, because the scanners didn't lie. The golden light pulsed once more. Brighter this time, and then came the sound. Not an alarm, something deeper. Sharper. A low, vibrating tone that didn't come from speakers, but seemed to rise up from the walls themselves. It cut through the air like a warning wrapped in a secret. The kind of sound you felt in your bones before your brain even registered fear. Then the screens lit up, every one of them. Not just at the checkpoint. Down the hall. Across the facility. In the weapons lab. In the briefing rooms. Even the monitors above the locked command doors. Priority clearance. Omega 7 detected. The letters weren't red, they were gold. Glowing. Alive. Phones locked across the building, freezing mid-text. Tablets went dark. Security cameras reoriented on Elena Brooks. and silence spread like smoke, and no one knew what to say, or even how to breathe. Granger finally let go of her ID card, or maybe it slipped from his hand. It hit the floor with a soft tap, but the sound felt louder than it should have. The officers who'd been laughing moments ago now stood at attention, jaws clenched, spines straight, like something ancient and dangerous had just entered the room. Because it had. Elena stepped forward, calm, controlled, like this was exactly how she expected it to go. Colonel Granger, came a voice behind them. Everyone turned. General Allen. Whitlock, 3 stars on each shoulder. Steel gray hair. A man known for icy discipline and zero tolerance for games. He didn't walk. He moved with purpose, like gravity answered to him. He stopped just a few steps away and saluted. Not to Granger, T.O. Elena. Ma'am, he said, crisp and clear. I wasn't notified of your presence. Elena returned the salute with a nod. That was intentional. Granger looked between them, confused, sweating now. Sir, what is this? She can't just. I wasn't told anything about a. Whitlock didn't look at him. Agent Brooks is not required to inform us. Her clearance exceeds mine. And yours. The words hit like a slap. Granger blinked. Clearance? What kind of clearance is Omega 7? Whitlock said simply. Gasps followed. A whispered curse. Someone actually stepped back, because that code didn't belong to normal people. Omega 7 was something you heard in stories, a classification. Levels so high most officers weren't even sure it was real. 12 agents. Across the entire government. 12 ghosts who answered to no one except a secure line inside the White House. They didn't need permission. They didn't need backup. They were the kind of people called in when everything else failed. The ones who could erase a name from a database or an entire building from a map, and Elena Brooks was one of them. Elena looked back at Granger, who now stood pale and breathless, like someone had pulled the air out of the room. I believe, she said softly, you owe me an apology. But the apology never came. Granger was too stunned to speak. His arrogance had drained out of him, replaced by something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Real, personal fear, because now he wasn't the one in charge. Now, the woman he'd mocked in front of everyone had the kind of power he'd only heard about in whispers, the kind that didn't file reports that IT delivered judgment. And Granger had volunteered to be judged. The weight of silence in Fort Resolute's corridor had changed. It was no longer the hush of confusion. It was the silence of realization. Colonel Mason Granger stood slack-jawed, pale as the walls behind him, as if his brain was still trying to rewrite what had just happened. But there was no rewriting. This. Elena Brooks stepped closer, her steps steady, soft, but somehow louder than his entire performance had been minutes earlier. You placed your hand on me, she said, her voice level, almost gentle. That alone would justify dismissal. Granger swallowed hard, his lips twitching like he wanted to speak, but could not form a sentence that would not damn him further. But that is not why I am here. Her words fell like blades. Measured. Intentional. The crowd shifted slightly. A tightening of posture, a realization among officers that something irreversible had begun. Phones had already locked. The video was gone, but it was too late. This moment had left a mark deeper than any footage could. A door at the far end of the corridor opened. Footsteps echoed. General Ava Langston entered. Crisp uniform, white gloves, chest full of commendations. She did not waste time with greetings. She made eye contact with Elena and saluted. Agent Brooks, she said. My office was not informed of your visit. Elena nodded once. There is a reason for that. Langston turned to the crowd, her expression unreadable. Clear the corridor. All non-essential personnel dismissed. No one questioned her. No one hesitated. The crowd thinned instantly, boots clicking away in quiet formation. Only a few remained. The core witnesses, the key ranks. And Granger, of course, still trying to hold on to what was already gone. Elena waited until the hallway had quieted again, then finally turned to face him fully. My visit is not random, she said. It is not routine. It is in direct response to a string of internal reports submitted through encrypted channels and buried by local command. Her gaze never left him. 3 female officers transferred out within 6 months. 2 filed complaints. That disappeared. 1 requested reassignment, citing psychological trauma. Granger shook his head once, lips parting. I did not. They were exaggerating. Misunderstandings. You do not know. I do know. Her tone hardened, not loud, but absolute. And so does Lieutenant Raya Kim's family. The name stopped him cold. The blood drained completely from his face. There it was, the unraveling that a flash of something behind his eyes. Regret? Recognition? Terror? Probably all three. Elena stepped closer, and this time, Granger stepped back. Just once. Just far enough to reveal what he really was. Not a predator. A man cornered by truth. She reported you, Elena said. Detailed. Precise. You called her soft in front of an entire unit. You reassigned her out of spite. You initiated a false disciplinary review when she filed an equal opportunity report. She paused. She hanged herself in her barracks 3 weeks later. Granger's knees buckled slightly. She was 26. General Langston remained silent beside them, as did everyone else. This was Elena's moment, and they all knew it. You may not have pulled the rope, Elena continued, but you held the pressure that pushed her to it. He opened his mouth, but there was nothing left to say. You should have identified yourself, he managed, desperate now. This is entrapment. Elena raised an eyebrow. You wanted me to sweetheart my way to the cafeteria. You mocked me in front of witnesses, grabbed my arm, filmed my humiliation. That was not entrapment, Colonel. That was you being exactly who you are when you thought no one important was watching. And then, softly, she asked, why? Granger blinked. What? Why? Did you do it? She repeated. What did you think it gave you? Control? Validation? Or did it just make you feel taller when someone else looked small? He said nothing. She leaned in just slightly, her voice low and devastating. You should have been better. You were given power. You chose to use it to break people. She pulled back, exhaled, and then offered him one final mercy, if it could be called that. Resign. Now. Quietly. Or I send a report to the Oversight Directorate, to the Pentagon, and to every committee with a vested interest in purging corruption from command culture. I assure you, they will be very interested in Raya Kim. Granger's body deflated. His shoulders slumped. There was nothing left of the man who had strutted this hallway 15 minutes earlier. Just a hollow figure, destroyed without a single shout. He nodded once. And that was it. The predator was gone. The double doors of Fort Resolute parted with a hiss, spilling sunlight onto polished concrete like a benediction. Elena Brooks stepped into the light, the sharp Virginia sky above her a stark contrast to the fluorescent purgatory she had just walked through. Outside, it was quiet. Almost too quiet. She stood still for a moment, breathing in the silence. Not peace, just the absence of noise. Her hands, steady during the confrontation, now trembled faintly. The weight had not lifted. It had only changed shape. The mission was done, but the cost had not been tallied yet. She reached into the side pocket of her plain gray blazer, the one that made her look like someone's admin assistant, not a federal phantom, and pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls, all from the same number. All marked with a red heart emoji beside the name. Sophie, her daughter. 7 years old. Wavy hair, wide, curious eyes that still believed in promises. Still believed that moms always came home when they said they would. Elena's thumb hovered over the voicemail icon, already knowing it would hurt more than anything Colonel Granger could have said. She pressed play. Hi, Mommy, it's me. Came the voice, bright, unfiltered, wrapped in joy. Guess what? I won second place in the school talent show. Elena closed her eyes. I talked about how you help people at your job, Sophie continued. I said you make sure everyone gets treated fair, even if they're scared to speak up. Mrs. Harmon said I was very well spoken. A pause. Then, when are you coming home? Daddy said you had to work late again. But maybe we can watch cartoons when you get back. Oh, and guess what? Mr. Pickles caught a bug in the kitchen, but I told him not to eat it. We let it go outside. The voice was fading now, replaced by something more fragile. I miss you. I really, really miss you. The message ended, and Elena broke. No tears at Fort Resolute. No trembling in front of men who would have loved to see her flinch. But here, alone by the curb beside a rental car with government plates, she bent forward slightly, just enough to let it out without collapsing. The tears were quiet, steady, the kind that belonged to people who had held them too long. This was the real price, not the hostility, not the threats, not the darkness she had to walk through again and again, unraveling the cruelty others protected. No, the real cost was missing second-place ribbons, missing bedtime stories, missing the way her daughter's voice got soft when she was about to cry but did not want to make it harder. She typed slowly, each word heavy. Tell her I'm proud. Home soon. Promise. She hit send. A lie she had told after every mission point one day. She knew Sophie would grow old enough to see through it. Old enough to realize that work late meant hidden bases and sealed files. That her mother was not a paper pusher, but something that walked in shadows and left justice behind like bloodstains no one talked about. Maybe Sophie would understand someday, or maybe she would just remember that her mother was always leaving, and that no award, no clearance, no speech before Congress could fix that. Elena took one last breath and stepped off the curb. Her car door creaked open. She sat, adjusted the mirror, wiped her face without looking, and drove. Behind her, Fort Resolute shrank in the glass. Just another building. Just another battlefield. The road unfurled ahead like a ribbon stretched across memory. Straight, gray, endless. Elena Brooks drove without music, without distraction. Only the hum of tires and the faint pulse of a woman caught between two worlds to eye in the rearview mirror. Fort Resolute faded to a smudge on the horizon. But the echoes lingered. Lieutenant Raya Kim, 26, bright, brave, systematically broken. She would never get her ribbon, never see justice in her lifetime. But her name had been spoken. Aloud. In uniform. In the presence of power. That mattered. And Elena had seen something shift. Not seismic, not revolutionary, but real. The female lieutenant who had whispered, "Thank you," in the hallway, voice shaking from years of swallowed pain. The older sergeant who had confessed what so many thought, but never admitted. We knew. We all knew. And the others, once dismissive, mocking, now suddenly solemn. Avoiding her eyes not from defiance, but from shame. From knowing they had stood by, while someone like Granger operated unchecked. That IT was not victory, but it was a crack. And sometimes, that was all it took. Cracks became breaks. Breaks became fractures. And eventually, institutions bled. Elena turned off the base road, merging onto the open highway. She could still feel the press of that girl's eyes, the young lieutenant. Hopeful, terrified, grateful. You survived, Elena had told her. The words had felt insufficient then. Still did, but they were the truth. And maybe, just maybe, survival could lead to something more. A report filed. A voice added to the record. A future that was slightly less hostile for the next woman who walked that corridor. Sophie's voicemail played again in her head. I said you help people at your job. The irony sliced deep. Her daughter imagined her in an office, maybe with coffee cups and folders, answering phones, solving disputes with calm smiles. Not staring down colonels, not dismantling monsters in uniform, not standing beside the ghosts of women who never got to grow old. Tell her I'm proud. Elena exhaled slowly, the landscape whipping past in blurs of green and gold. Somewhere ahead, there was a second-place ribbon waiting. A child who still believed in heroes, even if she did not realize her mother was one. For now, that would have to be enough. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel. There would be another base, another name buried in a sealed report, another Granger with a different face and the same rot beneath. And when that call came, as it always did, Elena would answer. She would trade her blazer for tactical silence, wear her kindness like armor, and walk quietly into places where cruelty had grown comfortable. Not because she expected applause, but because someone had to. And for a few hours, at least, she would be just a mother. Not a shadow, not a weapon, just a woman holding her daughter, holding a life that still had room for softness. Then she would disappear again, because ghosts never stay for long.